Hi, I'm Caroline Bateman. I'm making this video to answer the questions I'm frequently asked about Achieve Clubs. Achieve Clubs are after-school learning support classes for primary age children. This is a publicity you might have seen on social media or around the school. And these are the questions that I'm going to attempt to answer very quickly. Now, I say very quickly because the nature of a video is you can always stop and rewind if I go too quickly. So off I go. Now, the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to answer a question that isn't on that list, which is who am I? Which I think is a very fair question that some people are too polite to ask. Now, I got qualified for doing this after I had my children. I worked in the IT industry, but all three of my children are extremely dyslexic. And as a result, they were all failing horribly at school. I then stopped working so I could support them because it was a very, very time-consuming thing each evening. And it wasn't going well. So coming from a technology background, I decided to see what I could find. And I was very impressed. But why look for technology? Well, in brief, because I'm extremely blind. My prescription is plus 9.5, which basically means had I lived before glasses were commonplace, I'd have never learnt to read because I'd have never focused on the page. Now, my son was really struggling to learn to read, and it was holding him back on all the other subjects, not just his English. And I thought, I've got to find technology that will help him in the same way that glasses help me. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my eldest daughter so you can see how it did help. So in year one, she was on a table with children that only spoke English as a foreign language. And back in year one, she had decided she was stupid and I had no idea there was a problem. By the end of year two, I realized there was an issue. So I tried to get her to go to a smaller school. And she was incredibly resistant to do the entrance exam, which was very simple, very low pressure, because she believed she was stupid. And by year four, she'd absolutely made a decision that she would never be academic and she wasn't going to work hard at school. She didn't read a chapter book till she was in year 8. And at the end of year 9, when they were taking their options for GCSE, she was advised to take all the less academic options. Double science, not triple. Don't do history, you'll find it too hard. Now, this is her year 6 English report, and it says the sort of thing that you often see in dyslexic reports. Just it wasn't glowing. It was just saying that she wasn't doing very well at all. But here are her actual GCSE results, and I was amazed here with English language. She got an A star, and on one paper she got 100%, and even more shocking for a girl that didn't read a chapter book till till she was in year 8, she got an A star at English literature, and in 3 exams she only dropped 1 mark. She then went on to study English literature at A level and is now excelling at Bath University, where she's really happy. So I'm not saying or not showing these things to boast, but to give parents hope that even if children are underperforming in school, with the right tools, they can go on and do well academically, opening all the opportunities that does when they leave academia. Having seen what an amazing impact the technology had on my own children and their academics, I then went to their schools and taught the staff about how they can use technology to help dyslexic learners. And they in turn asked me to do talks for their parents. And when I did the talks for their parents, some of them were teachers and asked me to go to their schools to give the same talk. And I was absolutely delighted to do this because I'm convinced that technology can really transform learning. And normally at this stage of the presentation, I show photographs of me teaching adults and then all the different children that I've taught in after school clubs or during the school day. But because this is going on social media, I don't feel good about having those photographs shown. So I just want to show you that my mission is now to provide the support that I wish had been available for my family, because we definitely found life very difficult for a long while, and that's why I set up Achieve Now. So, why do some children need additional support? School is, to begin with, all about learning to read. So from 4 to 8, schools are really concentrate on learning to read. And then once children learn to read, they then have to read in order to learn. So if a child struggles with literacy, they will struggle right across the curriculum. And all too often, teachers, parents, and the children themselves mistake the ability to read with intelligence. Now, literacy and intelligence are two totally different things. Many children are extremely bright, but they struggle to learn to read. And I'm just going to explain to you why this is the case. So on the left here is a 14-year-old boy reading from Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. And if you try to read it, it does look like gobbledygook, but a mum recorded exactly what he said as he read out loud. Now, if you have that information in front of you, it's very, very hard to answer these comprehension questions on the right. But this is what it should have said. And if you've got the correct information, so when you're reading it, you can decode the words and have the fluency and understand what you're reading, then the questions are very, very easy to answer. And at school, every day, dyslexic children or children with dyslexic tendencies are being given stuff to read that they really struggle to understand, and therefore they're at a disadvantage. But in actual fact, they could be geniuses at physics or maths or design, but they're being limited by their reading. And so what happens is, over time, a gap occurs, an achievement gap between most students and the dyslexics, and this increases over time. Now, if we think about it, schools value many things above academics, and websites will talk about resilience and kindness and integrity, but as far as every day in the classroom, their work that is marked, it's their reading, their writing, their spelling. And each day, children, if they're not getting good marks in these areas, no matter how well they do with all the values, they can start to feel like a failure. And this tends to happen. If a child struggles with literacy, they're very, very aware. They compare themselves to their peers and they get low self-esteem. And they can get very anxious about having to read. And that anxiety further impacts their ability to decode and understand what they're reading. So this becomes a very, very vicious circle. And as children get older and they have to write homework, then it gets even harder. And you tend to see dyslexic children spending a disproportionate amount of time on their homework and still getting bad grades. And again, they compare themselves to peers. They think that they're stupid. They get anxious, they get frustrated, and then in the end they just give up and find alternative ways of being accepted by their peer group rather than doing well academically. And so this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get technology that will help to reduce this achievement gap. In fact, I want to equip students that struggle with literacy with the skills that will help them come on and achieve their full potential and not be limited in any way. So most schools are designed for regular learners, and that makes sense because the majority of students are regular learners, and it's most efficient if they learn by reading. But as I've said, schools do confuse literacy with intelligence, with detrimental effects on many young people. So for a dyslexic to reach their full potential, they need additional support. And truthfully, schools don't receive any extra funding for having dyslexic members, and therefore it's very, very hard for schools to provide the support that is required. And without this support, children underachieve, they have a poor self-image, they have low expectations of themselves, which is incredibly dangerous, and this reduces their life chances. So why create achieve groups? Well, once I got my own children on track academically, lots of people asked me to help their children, and sometimes I was able to help them. But the older the children were when they came to me for help, the harder it was. And as their children get older, the pressures of homework just get so much bigger that it's hard to take on new skills. There's no time and there's no headspace. Plus, students get into really bad habits that are hard to undo. And they feel way too stressed having to learn something new when they're already struggling. So I'm convinced that I need to teach these vital skills that can really make a huge difference to how dyslexics achieve academically, but they need to know them before they get to secondary school. So this is just a very easy guide to how to do well in GCSEs. So what I'm saying here is, if this are the GCSE exams, and this is a timeline for years 10 and 11, if you can take the last month just doing past papers, in years 10 and 11, students need to attend all the lessons, take good notes, which is often hard for dyslexic students. They need to complete all their coursework or their homework. They need to create good revision notes. They need to learn those notes, and they need to then start doing past papers. So this is my quick recipe, very simplified recipe for success in GCSEs. Now, other things also impact on the results students get. So access arrangements are very important, but we won't get into that now. The ability to read quickly and accurately. All exams are not just a test of knowledge, they are a test of speed. So if you're slow at reading and you're slow at writing, you're at a disadvantage, and if you can't read accurately, you're also at a disadvantage. And now every exam, biology, history, has a certain amount of marks for spelling and grammar, known as the SPAG mark, and that wasn't around when I was a child, and I think that's why I did really well academically, even though I struggled with spelling and grammar. And we have to teach children how to memorize, and for some they need help improving their working memory, and for all they need to learn how to learn facts. And I find schools are great at teaching the subject content, but they take for granted that children know how to learn, and in my experience they don't. Particularly dyslexic children need help learning how to learn. And they have to have legible and quick handwriting or efficient touch typing. And touch typing is a skill that will really help anyone through life. But if someone has dyslexic tendencies, they need it all the more. And as they get older, it is so hard to teach secondary school students how to type, but much easier to teach primary school students. So once you start these GCSE courses, it is too overwhelming to take on new skills like touch typing or improving handwriting or improving your spelling and grammar. So this needs to be done before they start the GCSE courses, and even better if they can do it in primary school. So we provide Achieve Clubs to be able to do this, and Achieve Club provides a positive environment plus technology that will empower learners. So what do I mean by a positive environment? We make sure all the children understand that intelligence is not the same as literacy, and that they are not defined by their struggles in literacy. We make sure that they know there's no fear of failure. It's a really safe place to make mistakes, and we make it clear that you learn from making mistakes. That's how you learn the most. We make sure everyone understands that everybody learns differently. There isn't just one way to learn, and we learn a lot about dyslexic learning styles. We find out about in fact, that we have young role models to help. I always try to employ young dyslexics to help, and I think they often have a bigger impact on the children than I do. Just seeing someone a bit older than them that's doing well at school is great. We watch a lot of videos and TV programs that explain lots of things, like why some people do well at school or don't do well at school, then go on and do really well in life. Or we just talk about how to handle difficult situations. It's a very safe area where children can express themselves and help one another. We reward work done at home, and the idea of this is if we are rewarding them for practicing at home, it takes away the impetus for parents to have to nag children to work. So we're trying to take that pressure away from the home, and we want to raise children's expectations for what they can achieve, and we want to build their confidence. So everything we do is trying to achieve these things. And the technology enables every child to have their own independent, personalized study approach. You know, that they're all going to do different things because they're all going to struggle with different aspects. And what happens is everyone wears headphones and they're assessed and they do what they need, and it's very, very personalized. They progress at their own speed, and a lot of what we do is a lot of fun, and we're trying to make the learning experience enjoyable. And they learn skills that will help them through life. What actually happens at Achieve Clubs? Let's have a look. Well, every week, everyone learns to touch type, does some sort of phonics, reading and spelling intervention. And only if needed do we do the things on the right. So very often students need help with telling the time, but not always. Even less might need times table help, but if they do, we can give it. A surprising number of children will benefit from eye tracking and convergence, but we do a little test at the beginning and work out who would benefit, and the same goes for phonological awareness. So eye tracking and phonological awareness is something that you wouldn't get in most schools. But no two children do exactly the same. It's very dependent on their needs. And we also occasionally do cover other topics, but these would very much depend on the needs of the child, and they wouldn't be every week. So we just show them how to use reminders on their phones if they're older children who have phones. If they really struggle with writing, we might show them dictation. If they've got a lot of spelling tests and they want to know how to prepare for spelling tests, we can help them. From a child's perspective, they come along, they play fun computer games, they watch videos, they chat amongst themselves and with us. They win prizes for any work that they've done at home, and when they meet particular milestones or reach targets, they have snacks which we supply. Many bring their own picnics, they're encouraged to bring a picnic so they're not hungry, and that doesn't stop them from learning. And they meet other children and adults with dyslexia or other kids that struggle with literacy at school. What specific technologies do we use? I'll just give you a quick look and feel of some of them. But before I do, I'll explain why I think technology is so brilliant, particularly in the area of intervention solutions to help children. And the first thing is they always start off with a test to work out what the child is good at and what they're not good at. And so then sets their targets dependent on what they need to learn. The next thing I love is it allows them to repeat something they don't understand as often as they like without any embarrassment, without having to say to a TA, I'm sorry, I still don't understand. So there's no shame in having to repeat work. They're normally a lot of fun and multisensory. And I loved it when I found them because they freed me up as a parent. I have 3 children, so they could all get on with doing their own work rather than having to take turns of peace with me sitting by them side. And in the same way as it frees up parents, it frees up staff. It's incredibly cost effective because once you've paid for an intervention program, the child can do it every day, and very few people can afford a dyslexia tutor every day, but they can once it's available and you can play it every day. I love the fact that they're mobile as well. If you have them on an iPad or a laptop, you can often make use of time while waiting for siblings to finish sports events, and they do report on progress as well. So even though the child can repeat stuff without shame, you can get progress reports that tell adults where the child is struggling. So this is a touch typing program we use, which is got lots of games and lots of nice graphics. It's a brilliant touch typing program, and it sees children really learning to type. This is what we use for phonics and reading, spelling and reading. This is Nessie, and their strapline is "Learning happens when it's fun." And truthfully, children really do enjoy playing on Nessie. And you can see that it starts very, very simply, just learning letter sounds, but it does go to quite a high level and will stretch the children and get them ready for SATs. And it says down here that it follows the principles of Orton Gillingham, which is very important. And what happens in this, they're set on a challenge, and they need to get through all these islands. So they start off with all the islands under cloud, and as they achieve their targets, the clouds disappear until they see everything. So it's really good. They have to wake up sleeping animals to save the monkeys from the naughty gorillas, and children really get into it. It gives them a lot of prizes. They win nuggets, and it's shocking how much children enjoy it. Engaging eyes. This is great for children that have just had enough of reading and spelling, because you don't have to do either of those things when you play engaging eyes, and yet it can improve both these things. So you're using the keyboard to fire target at 3D objects, and you can do this by wearing 3D glasses, and it's the results for this were amazing. And I personally have seen children really improve in their speed and accuracy of reading having done this for a period of time. So how does this club differ from school? Well, first of all, the class size is much smaller. Our adult-child ratios are far better. We have far fewer children to adults. It's a lot more relaxed. They call us by our first names. We utilise technology that most schools aren't able to use in the school day. We make sure it's a really safe environment. Everyone's in the same position. Everyone struggles with something. That's why they're there. We make it the adults make mistakes. They're very comfortable with that. We want everyone to be very comfortable with making mistakes, and we use videos a lot to reinforce this. And we love giving out prizes. We reward effort and progress, and we can actually give out sweets, which you wouldn't normally be able to do in a school. Now, you could ask, and I think this is a very valid question, could I just work with my child at home? Could I just buy user licenses for all the different technologies? And I would say absolutely yes, you can. By coming to the club, the solutions are cheaper because there are economies of scale in buying large numbers of users. And I also think that children often work better outside of the family. They can get stroppy for family members, but they'll work in an after school group. So if you are having problems with children refusing to work for you, then maybe the club is a better idea for your family harmony. It does give them an opportunity to develop peer relationships with similar kids, and that is really worthwhile. So I do think there are benefits from attending the club, but it's not necessary. Everything can be done from home. Can I really change how a child is going to do in their GCSEs from coming to one lesson a week of after school club? Absolutely not. But the whole club is designed not to be something they do once a week, but to really set them up for victory and encourage them to work from home. So little and often, it makes a big difference, and they can take on new skills. They can learn to spell things correctly. It really is a brilliant thing to do, just to get them doing stuff every day. But we do rely on parents to support us, and to we keep you informed so you know what we're trying to achieve, and you can encourage them to continue from home. But all the programs, they log in from home and they can continue to play. Now, when should a child start? I don't have anybody come younger than year 3, although you can buy the programs at home and do all of them before year 3. One of the reasons I don't is I don't think it's fair on year 6 children to be in school with really young children. So I only take mature year 3s, and really we start at year 4. But I really would recommend starting as soon as possible, be it at home or be it by attending a club, because in my experience, children cooperation goes down over time. I want to go back to that. Their brain plasticity is declining, so the sooner they start, the easier it is to learn. The pressure of work just increases with school, and so does peer pressure, and they don't want to be different as they get older, but they're more likely to be happy to be different when they're younger. So who would benefit from attending the club? Basically anyone who's struggling with literacy at school. And it is literacy the driver rather than mathematics. Even though we cover maths and times table and telling the time, we are more based around literacy. Who should not attend? If parents are sensitive about the word dyslexia being used, it is a term we use a lot. Children don't have to have a dyslexia diagnosis, but everyone that comes has dyslexic tendencies. And I think it's better to assume, I learn differently. That's why I find this hard. And I find that very, very helpful. And the kids that attend tend to find it helpful too. But if you don't want them to hear that word, then this isn't the school for them. What people say about this is just some recommendations that we've received from parents and students. If you want your child to attend, then email Emma at emma@achievenow.org.uk. How much will it cost? We charge £30 a week for a 2-hour session, but there's also a half-termly charge for the software and the equipment. The actual amount of that half-termly charge does depend on how many children sign up, because we pass on economies of scale, but it will never be over £30 per half-term, and could be as low as £20 per half-term. And it's far more cost effective than buying individual licenses, because over a year we will use all these different solutions, and even if they don't carry on using them for the full year, they will have the opportunity to try and see if they benefit from them, whereas at home you've got to buy all the licenses in order to try them. So if you have any questions, if you email me, caroline@achievenow.org.uk, I will do my very best to answer them for you. Thank you.